So I just got back from a weekend in Somerset. It was a reset. It was a bit of a detox, not complete sort of digital detox like that, but it was a reset that I definitely needed more than I realized. Something guided me towards it. And one of the things I did when I was there was to meditate quite a lot and to practice mindfulness. And when I think a lot of people hear those terms, they associate them with, a yogi in India, meditating on a mountain, or, just some all peace and light and love, and a yoga class and namaste and just all this stuff, which is, yeah, it's beautiful. That's part of it, don't get me wrong, but it's not the true essence of what mindfulness really is, or even what in Eastern philosophy, mindfulness, meditation, the whole point of yoga and these kinds of practices really are. The point is to be present. And what I want to talk about in this video is that to be present doesn't mean to feel full of peace and love all the time. Sometimes it can mean to feel a darkness and sit with it, or a sadness and sit with it. There's a concept of toxic positivity where, someone is going through something bad and, people say, oh, well, if you did some yoga and you did this and drink this smoothie, of course, this is hyperbole, but, you'll drink this smoothie and you'll do this practice and it'll all be fine. It's like, no, some situations aren't fine, and it's actually totally okay to feel not okay. And people who truly understand Eastern philosophy and mindfulness would understand this, but sometimes I think if people haven't explored these things and they just see, the image, the way it's, especially in the West now, is marketed in a sense, because these philosophies really originated in the East, in places like Tibet, India, China, in ancient times, and have come over more to the West, and they're always wrapped up now in this packaging of sometimes what I'd call toxic positivity. Not always. There's definitely, I would say, a sizable minority of exceptions. If I was gonna sort of put percentages on it, but what I was experiencing this weekend was, one day there's a particular place in Somerset called Glastonbury, and you will have all heard of Glastonbury, about the festival, but there's a town called Glastonbury which is full of, that's what I'd call a very powerful energy. It's full of people with this kind of intention. I think that's what gives a place what I call energy. I'm not a religious person, but I go into a church, I go into a mosque, I go into a synagogue, and it doesn't, it's a temple, it doesn't make a difference really to how I feel. And you could just, for the record, put any religious building in there. The point is that where people go to connect with something higher, and there's places in Glastonbury, and there's one place called the Chalice Wells Garden in particular, where everyone there has got that intention, and the energy field, therefore, I feel is really powerful. But it doesn't all have to be light. You can experience great sadness there. It can bring out that sadness, because mindfulness is sitting with your feelings and looking at what is really there and experiencing them, and not trying to mask them with something else, just being and observing. Om Namaha translates into Sanskrit for I am not my mind. And if Sanskrit philosophy is a bit heavy on you, actually The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is quite an old book now, but it simplifies this philosophy very well if you just want a kind of almost an entry-level point to the sort of stuff I'm talking about here. I am not my mind, I'm the observer rather than the actual thoughts and feelings. And of course, if you can separate out thoughts and feelings from what your mind is, then you can do things that aren't reactive to your thoughts and feelings. And this brings me to, another place that I was, because the sadness was someone I love very much that I observed experiencing this. This was not actually myself. I felt a great deal of clarity and love on one of the days, but the other day I felt a lot of anger. An incident had occurred just beforehand, which had, rightfully so, I would say, and this is the thing, sometimes it's right to be angry, sometimes it's right to, I wouldn't say take up arms and fight in this situation, but a confrontation had occurred, and I was in the right. I thought about it and reflected on it as, a reflective place to think about these things, and I thought, yeah, no, I was in the right there. But I was still angry, and I sat with that anger. And I'm not a Hindu, but I did grow up with a mother who also wouldn't call herself a Hindu, but we come from a lineage of Hindus. And in Hinduism, there's a god called Shiva, which is the god of destruction. That might sound like a paradox, but there's basically one god in Hinduism, and there's three main, how do you call it? It's a bit like a trinity. It's similar to Christianity if you think of it that way. But you have the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer, and Shiva's the destroyer, because to create you must also destroy. To be a good person, I use that word, it's a little blunter than I normally put things, because good and bad are not simple things, but let's just simplify it. To be a good person is not always to just be loving and kind. Sometimes to be a good person, you must destroy, you must take up arms, you must fight. There's situations of great injustice in the world right now where doing nothing is taking the side of the oppressor. And there's micro situations in everyday life where doing nothing is taking the side of the oppressor. And Shiva represents that to me. And so I just meditated on the anger. And eventually it dissolves. Eventually you don't stay with it forever. But if you sit with it and feel destructive and feel that anger, and I'd probably, men of a certain age might feel this more than others, but everyone will feel this to an extent. Sit with that anger and urge to destroy, and you'll find that actually something beautiful comes out of it. And that's where sometimes the true message of mindfulness gets lost in the way it's packaged and marketed in the West, I would say. Om Namah, I am not my mind.